Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. You are at LAFCO. Today is Wednesday, June 27th, 6 p.m. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. If we could do our introduction of commissioners and staff, starting with Bill.
Yeah, Bill Berryhill, public member.
Amy Bublak, city member.
Tom Dunlop, city member.
Terry Withrow, county member.
Mike Van Winkle, alternate city member.
Vito Chiesa, alternate, sitting in for Jim DiMartini, county member.
Brad Hahn, alternate public member.
Javier Camarena, assistant executive officer.
Sarah Lytle-Penny, executive officer.
Rob Terrell, LAFCO council.
Jennifer Goss, commission clerk.
Very good, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. This will be the time for anyone in the public to speak for any item that is not on the agenda. Any item not on the agenda, 5 minutes for anyone to stand up and speak about a non-agenda item. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our approval of minutes.
Move to approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Correspondence?
The commission has a packet of specific correspondence related to item 7A in front of them. It consists of 6 letters and emails regarding the Oakdale Rural Fire application. And then you also have the informational correspondence noted on your agenda.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's move on to declaration of conflicts and disqualifications. Any conflicts or disqualifications? Seeing none. Consent items. Do we have a motion with regard to our consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Let's move on to our public hearing. Item 7A, LAFCO application 2017-03 and SOI modification, sphere of influence number 2017-07, Division 1 North Area, change of organization to Oakdale Rural Fire Protection District, continued from April 25th, 2018.
All right. It was a nice long title for you. This is continued from our meeting 2 months ago. I'm going to give you just a quick overview of the proposal itself. It's kind of a recap from our last meeting, and then I'm going to give you an update of what has happened since the last meeting and where we're at now. So Oakdale Rural Fire Protection District has applied for a sphere of influence modification and annexation of the area known as Division 1 North. It contains about 57,600 acres. It's just north of their current boundary, which kind of bisects Woodward Reservoir, as you see there, and is north of Knights Ferry and Valley Home. It would essentially take in the remaining portion of the county that is not within a fire district currently. Oakdale Rural responds to fire calls and emergency medical calls out in that area, and they're also under contract with Stanislaus Consolidated Fire. CAL FIRE also responds to wildland fires in the majority of the area, which is under a state responsibility zone. So as we noted at our last meeting, annexation of the Division 1 North area has been a goal of the district for many years. The goal for them is to extend their special tax over that area that they currently collect in their existing boundary. This was an application that previously came before the commission in 1997 and was denied at that time. And this was also in the packet from last time, but this was showing that the district responds to an average of 100 calls in the north area, and then just to emphasize that they do not receive any operational funds for those calls, and annexation would potentially result in $40,000 for the district. The district special tax, they have a breakdown that's also in the packet from a couple months ago. Just to give you an idea of how they calculate their special tax, this is applied to all of their existing area that's in their boundary, and then it would carry forth over into the north area if the annexation was successful. So following the April 25th hearing, we received a letter on behalf of the district from William D. Ross, their attorney. He emphasized a couple of responses to comments that were made at the last meeting, including clarification regarding mutual aid or lack thereof. He also emphasized that if the annexation were to not be approved, not be successful, that the district would stop providing services after October 31st. And that letter's attached to your packet. The district also hosted a second outreach meeting for property owners and registered voters in the area. That was held on May 30th. LAFCO staff attended. There was also representatives from Stanislaus Consolidated Fire, of course Oakdale Rural Fire, and CAL FIRE at the meeting to answer questions. The majority of attendees there were in opposition. There was about a dozen or so property owners and residents. There was only one person that had a question about if they wanted their property annexed in, if the whole thing had been denied, if they could include theirs in. Otherwise, the vast majority were in opposition, and there was a pretty distinct level of frustration given that this had come up before. So there's also additional correspondence that we've received in opposition that is attached to your packet. Those were letters and emails since the last meeting, and then also up until the time that we drafted the report. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you have some additional letters that we received that we put at the dais for you. I think we had a total of 13 or so letters and emails, and then also we've had phone calls, about the same number of phone calls since then to staff. So included in those letters, and also these are some concerns that were shared at our last meeting, those in opposition made the points that you're seeing there on the slide, that services are already provided by CAL FIRE or Farmington Fire District. They feel those are already sufficient. They felt that Oakdale Rural's response time is too slow. Some of the property owners at the outreach meeting said that they currently suppress fires on their own, on their property. Property owners also indicated that they felt they should not be responsible for any costs associated with responses to traffic accidents in the area. And then there was a general comment made, too, that the property owners in the area already pay too many taxes. So commission policies, and these were summarized by Javi last time as well, and they're summarized in your packet, but applicable to this proposal, the commission's policies generally encourage logical boundaries with an emphasis on matching a service area with a district or city's jurisdictional boundaries. There's many factors that the commission looks at for annexation proposals generally, including need for organized services, sufficiency of revenues for those services, as well as comments from landowners, voters, and residents. So tonight, the commission has these three options. They can approve the proposal, which would then trigger a protest hearing for all of the landowners and voters. That protest hearing may result in an election. We'll talk about that shortly. The commission could also deny the proposal, and if they do that, the application is immediately terminated. At that point, the district could reapply, although it would have to be for a different proposal of some sort, say a reduced area. Or the commission could continue the proposal if there's additional information needed. So this gives you an idea of the protest hearing thresholds, and there's maybe a better visual of it in your packet on page 37, but this is to show that if there's a protest hearing and less than 25% of the voters or landowners protest, the annexation is upheld or approved. If there are protests between 25 and 50% of voters, it would go to a more formal election. And if there's, same with if there's 25% or more of landowners, it would go to an election. If there's 50% or more of voters protesting, the annexation is immediately terminated. Just a little extra info here regarding if there should be a protest hearing. We found that there's approximately 115 property owners in the area and 72 registered voters. The cost for that protest hearing or any subsequent election would be the responsibility of the district. So the actions tonight, if the commission does approve the proposal, staff is recommending that they adopt Resolution 2018-05 that includes determinations including the CEQA exemption and the extension of the special tax. That approval would also direct the executive officer to initiate the protest process. If the commission denies the proposal, they would adopt the corresponding resolution for denial, and they would also need to state the reason for denial in the motion, and that's consistent with our sphere policy. And with that, staff is available if you have any questions.
Very good, thanks, sir. Okay, any questions of staff?
Terry, I got a few.
Sure.
So, let me get a couple things straight here.
Bill, maybe pull that mic over there closer to you so you can know if that's working.
Is that better?
There we go.
What's the process now if a couple property owners want the service? I mean, how does that work, or does it work?
So, first we would act on this proposal. So assuming this proposal is either denied or the annexation doesn't go through, those property owners could they'd probably first approach the district and indicate their interest. The district could apply on their behalf for their own annexation into the district.
Okay.
It would come with their own cost, so they would have to have a filing fee with LAFCO and prepare a legal description, but they could request that.
Okay. With regard to the response to accidents and medical situations, cannot the fire district bill for those specific services? I read something in one of the articles in one of the papers about, I think it was Salida that was doing that, and so is that an option for the fire district if they respond to an accident?
I'll probably let the district respond to that, but I know districts have been considering it as a policy issue, and some have been in favor of it and some have not.
Okay. And as far as an election, if we were to go that route, would that be a vote by mail? Would that be a special election? Would there be significant costs, or
So the first phase of it would be the protest hearing by LAFCO, and LAFCO staff actually handles that. So we would do a mailing, like we did for the hearing, the public hearing notice. Not too significant of a cost there. The more significant cost would be if that protest does trigger the election through the elections department, and that's unknown.
Yeah, that'd be up to the
Likely a
county
lot larger.
clerk or whatever to.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions? Brad?
I have a question related to bills. If 3 or 4 landowners want to have it, do they fall under the contiguous rules that we have for other kind of annexations?
Orderly growth.
The orderly growth. I mean, we can't do one here and there. Does it apply to this type of annexation?
They do not have to be contiguous, but it might make more sense that they are at least closer to the existing boundary, and that would be something too that the district would weigh in on if they feel it's appropriate to have, Swiss cheese of boundary or not.
Well, my question was, are we prohibited?
But
from
we are not prohibited.
Like other, land annexations that cities do.
Yeah, districts have slightly different rules in that regard.
Very good. Any other questions of staff? Okay, I'm going to open this up to the public. I have one speaker card from Evelyn Starman, and Evelyn is the field rep for Supervisor Olson. Evelyn, how are you?
Good. I'm good. Good evening. My name is Evelyn Starman. I work for Supervisor Kristen Olson, and I am here tonight to speak on her behalf. Supervisor Olson has been working closely with the Oakdale Rural Fire District and Stanislaus Consolidated on this annexation, an effort for over a year now. Before her, Supervisor O'Brien was also working on it. Understandably, nobody ever wants to pay for fire or EMS services, but the fact is that the residents of Division 1 North area have been receiving such services for free for as long as we know. It simply isn't fair for everyone else in the district to pay for such services when others don't have to. Essentially, everyone who pays into the district today is subsidizing the Division 1 North area. If this annexation goes through, we hope over time to figure out how to improve services in this area and throughout the entire district. If it doesn't go through, Oakdale Rural Fire will begin serving only those areas that are actually paying into the district. We believe that the district needs the triggering event of an actual annexation vote in order for it to either stop providing service due to lack of payment or continue providing service if annexation is successful. Supervisor Olson understands that there are opinions on both sides of this issue, and there's a level of frustration over a desire for better service. She fully supports and requests the LAFCO vote to allow annexation to move forward, and she also supports the residents, the right to voice of opposition of the annexation and to show up to the protest hearing. Extensive outreach has been done to the people of Division 1 North area by both the Oakdale Rural Fire and the county. I would like to thank you guys for allowing me to come out and speak on behalf of Supervisor Olson while she's out of town with her children. Thank you.
Thanks, Evelyn. Okay. Any other comments? Anyone else?
Good evening. Thank you. It's nice to see you all again. My name is Vincent Victorine, and I'm on the board of directors for the Oakdale Rural Fire Protection District. And I'd like to thank you again for giving us some advice last time, a couple months ago, to have another meeting with the folks from Division 1 North, and we did that. And it's been nice to get to know the folks from Division 1 North. They're good people. They're very hard-working people and educated. They know what this is all about. And I'm convinced that it isn't a matter of confusion. It's a matter of what they want. So here we are. We're at a point where we are deciding whether or not they're going to get to memorialize that vote themselves, or you folks take that responsibility and possibly deny the application. So what I would like to say on that is, forward thinking, we deny the application, we go on record and we don't provide services after October 31st of this year. Down past that, further on beyond October 31, we have to revisit why there's no services. I think the only conclusion is that LAFCO didn't allow us to allow the members of Division 1 North to say yes or no, which we don't have a preference. We just need to know if they want to be in or they want to be out. I think they should be the ones memorializing that through a protest vote or at the ballot. It shouldn't be LAFCO saying that we're not going to allow the application, because that's the triggering event we're going to act on to stop services. And I don't see how that could be right. It should be the folks of Division 1 North. So that would be that. And Mr. Berryhill, we can't bill, currently we cannot bill for those services. No, because they're not in our district. And speaking of that, when we talk about accidents, people who don't live in the area, it's a highly traveled road to and from the Sierras. There, you got Highway 120, you got 4. There are surface roads to and from the Sierras that a lot of areas are subject to these out-of-towners coming in and getting in accidents and taking resources from us. So that's not unique. So I don't know that would be applicable in making the decision on whether or not we annex Division 1 North or not. But anyway, that's what I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Vincent. Any other comments?
I'm Sally Gearing. I live on Main Street, Knights Ferry. And for me, it's just a matter of business. That area has been getting service for years and years and years without paying for anything. Knights Ferry, it took us 3 times to pass our fire bond, but we got it passed. And we pay every year for our fire bond. We have 120. People get in head-on collisions there. It's a routine everything that goes on. Emergency medical response and fire response is just that. It's a necessity. It has to happen everywhere. You can't say they're not from here. We're not going to help them. My husband's pulled, I think, 6 people out of the river so far this year. None of them with life preservers, none of them on a licensed rafting company trip, just getting in a river that they know nothing about. And we had 3 people die last year within the span of where I live. So that gets taken care of. I mean, they come when they're called, and I appreciate that so much, but no one wants to pay more taxes. I don't want to pay more taxes, but I don't want to pay anybody else's bill either. I think everyone needs to, if they're getting the service, they need to pay for it. It's not fair for everybody else to carry their bill. It's just basic business sense to me. Nobody's going to pay my water bill or my garbage bill for me that lives 45 minutes from my house. So I would appreciate that you take everything in that we pay for on a regular basis for the same thing they get for free when you're considering this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sally. Okay. Anyone else? Any other comments?
My name is David Swall, and I live out in Eugene on Sonora Road. 40 years ago, I told Timmy Hubble, he was a fire chief, if you had a truck at the top of my driveway and you saw my house on fire, it'd be history. You can't staff Valley Home and Knights Ferry right now, both together, and my house would be burnt. And now I'm in the middle of a walnut orchard. My house would be history if you had a truck within a mile of my house, and you don't. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay, anyone else? Last chance. Okay, let's bring it back to the board for comments and a decision here.
I have a question. Is it a reality, does staff know, is it really a reality if you have an automobile accident 2 miles north of Woodward Reservoir, is that a reality for them not to respond?
That's a fire department question.
My understanding it isn't, because if CAL FIRE is busy up the hill and Farmington is happened to be doing something else on Highway 4, the engine from Oakdale is going to go, right?
I'd probably let them respond to that.
Acting Fire Chief Mike Wapnowski, Stanislaus Consolidated Fire District, members of the board. To answer that question, there is a California Master Mutual Aid Agreement. Each one of the signatory fire departments are signatory to that agreement. With that scenario, if a vehicle accident did happen, you would need, and there is no coverage in that area, you still need to have an authority that has jurisdiction to provide coverage for that area. If it is CAL FIRE and they are busy, CAL FIRE would then request mutual aid from a Stanislaus County agency. The closest agency at that point would be Oakdale or Oakdale Rural. We would, if our units were not committed to their incidents within their own jurisdiction, there would be a unit that would respond. 1 unit, that's it. That's the way the Master Mutual Aid works. So you would not have an automatic aid response. It wouldn't be automatic. There would be a series of from each one of the command centers to get the right resource, so there would be a delay in service.
Now, is there actually fire protection? I've read several things here in the documents. Is CAL FIRE responsible for that area?
CAL FIRE is responsible. Their mission is for the watershed only. So for the watershed, meaning brush, grass, that's what they respond to. So anything outside of that is the local jurisdiction's response as a primary agency to respond.
So they're not part of Farmington as far as structure and vehicle?
Farmington, no. So Farmington is in San Joaquin County. So once again, if Farmington is self-dispatch, that we would need to work some sort of, the county would need to work some sort of agreement out with Farmington as the authority having jurisdiction on responses into that area. It wouldn't come from Stanislaus County.
So if something would happen if this doesn't go through, if something would happen in November, then we'd have one of those situations where jurisdictions are calling each other trying to figure out who's really going to go while somebody bleeds out on the road. I mean, is that the reality?
Possibly, yeah. Until some sort of an agreement is reached somewhere along the line. I understand. I've been in the fire service for 33 years, and I've responded to that area back when it was county fire. It used to be one person on their engine, and that's what we would respond up there with the help of Oakdale Rural at that time. That was a mutual aid because we would call them one engine or the rescue truck. As the years have elapsed, the one thing that is constant up there is nasty accidents. They're very gnarly, and I've been to 100 of them, quite a few hundreds of them through my career up there. The fires of the area, the problem with that area is it's just so desolate, and it's remote for the fire agencies to respond to. It's not the amount of calls, it's the amount of calls once we are on scene of the incident, how long it takes us to extinguish the fire and the amount of resources that are needed to do so because of the lapse time to actually get fire suppression to it.
Structural fire aid in many of the central county, there's a structure fire. I think 5 units are dispatched.
Mm-hmm.
Is
because
that true out there?
There's an agreement between those agencies.
That's not the case out there.
No.
So they would wait for CAL FIRE.
They would wait for CAL FIRE
to put out the fire around the house.
Yes, they would.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. Any other questions, comments?
Okay. I'll go ahead and comment. I was actually surprised how big the district is. I know it's pretty isolated out there, but only 72 registered voters. My belief is if this goes to an election, that it probably won't be okay. But I have, on both sides here, I plead that as we talk about public safety and accidents and up in that area, I would agree Highway 4 is a difficult, high speed, it's a rec center. I would hope that we don't get to a point where we don't respond, but conversely, I tell the landowners it's not as simple as whether your house burns or not, because I live in the unincorporated area. I'm 6 miles from the fire department, a volunteer fire department, and my house probably burns to the ground also. I accept that. But it's really more about medical emergencies nowadays and car accidents, and you don't need a police officer and you don't need a firefighter until you need a police officer and you need a firefighter. And then they're the most important person in your life at that point. And hopefully it's not short-sighted. We're not here to talk about a campaign. I think I would be irresponsible in my duty here if I didn't allow the folks to vote for it. I would agree with Vincent's thought that even if it doesn't pass, if there is some issue, we need to leave it to the landowners to decide their fate. I think it's pretty simple for me. Again, the service probably doesn't get any better, but it's about all of us working together to make this a better community, to make it a safer community, and it would make it a safer community, I think, with an assessment. I know that doesn't make anyone happy, and I've supported our fire fee in Houston, our fire fee increase, because I want to try and make it better for everyone, because it is a tough area up there. Woodward Reservoir itself isn't even, you can see part of it's not in there, and we put 20,000, 30,000 people in there for events sometimes. So I appreciate all sides. I hope everyone really thinks this through, what it could mean for the community, and so I'll be supporting this.
Very good.
The option one, the annexation.
Perfect. Any other comments? Amy?
So I would agree with Vito on that. It's one of those things that I think you're right for speaking earlier about the cost, and that everybody has to pay a little bit of it. as much as I can appreciate people don't want it, I think you should at least have the opportunity to vote on it. And I'm not out there. And if somebody did get hurt and we made this decision, that would really bother me. If you make that decision, it's still going to bother me if you get hurt, obviously. But I want to make sure that you make this decision clearly knowing the facts because you're living out there. So by us approving this, it's not saying it's done. It's just that you guys are going to advocate for the best interest of you guys.
Very good. Thanks, Amy. Anybody else? I'll just weigh in myself. I agree with the previous two comments. I think we just need to allow this to move forward, which gives the opportunity for the taxpayers, the landowners, the voters to make this decision. It just shouldn't be in our hands to deny this, and then and then who knows what could happen. So this is the way I think the process should work at this point, is to let the landowners and the voters make this decision, and I would support the option 1 also, approval, and then we'll move forward from there with a protest vote and see what happens there. So, any further comments? Okay, I will look for a motion then.
I'll move to approve option 1 and adopt the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item 8A, response to the civil grand jury reports.
So this is a item of other business. The recommendation is for the chairperson to sign and submit a response letter to the grand jury. Just for clarification, LAFCO was invited to respond. We weren't subject to these reports. The grand jury prepared 2 reports that were fire-related, one regarding Burbank Paradise Fire Protection District and their board, and then another report is regarding the fire districts in general and their transparency, their availability of information. Staff prepared a response and also a discussion here that was included in that response, and commented on some of their recommendations, including some improvements to our own website to make sure that that information regarding special districts is accurate, and also some of the recommendations regarding Burbank Paradise in the hopes that the recommendations provided to that district are helpful to them having a functioning board and meeting the requirements of the Brown Act. So with that, we recommended that the commission approve a response to be signed by the chairperson.
Very good. Any comments, questions? Staff, anyone from the public? Yeah, I'll just make a comment just really quick regarding Burbank Paradise. It is in my district, and very much have lived a lot of what's going on out there, but I think things are on the right track, very much on the right track now. There's a new chief out there, and the board has anyway, a lot of good things that are happening out there, and I'm sure a lot of these recommendations will be put in place. So very good. With that, do we have
Why were most of the things in the grand jury report in your district?
That's a good question. Well, they weren't all in my district. I will look for a motion to approve.
Motion to move forward?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Commissioner comments? No comments from commissioners. Additional matters at discretion of the chairperson? None that I'm aware of. Executive officers report.
Yes, just a reminder, we'd mentioned at the last meeting that our July 25th meeting will be canceled. This board chambers will be undergoing some improvements, hopefully to the screens and the AV equipment in general, but we will resume our meetings back on August 22nd. And our upcoming applications that we're working on right now include 2 applications from the Keys Community Services District, and also an application for the Northwest Newman Master Plan. It's incomplete at the moment, but we're working on getting some items for them so we can get it before the commission.
Very good.
That's all.
Thank you. Okay. Nothing else? For the good of the order, this meeting is adjourned.